Hey everyone! We've looked at our fair share of colony management simulations already on this channel, each of them with very different focuses and objectives. In today's Let's Be Frank, we're taking a look at another unique title, an early access preview of Mercury Fallen. This one's a bit special. It wasn't just suggested in the Discord. Our very own community member BioFringe took steps to actually get this key into my hands so you guys can see this game. That said, just like always, we're going to take a look at everything objectively, so you, as a gaming consumer, can make up your own mind. While most colony management games are designed with the eventual larger colony in mind, one of the first big departures I noticed with Mercury Fallen is that your pawns are far more specialized, and you aren't going to get a lot of them. In the underground world you occupy, there are very limited resources, and with the surface being a dangerous place in this realm, it's important to strike a balance. The maximum number of pawns you can have is only 5, until you're able to research oxygen generation to increase your limit. Exploring and expanding in the underground is a safe process, and there's chests buried randomly in each map that offer treasures, in addition to some of the lore about the world you found yourself in. As you may expect, there are random events and happenings to deal with, though at the moment, the variety seems fairly limited to crop disease, which was relatively common, or more rarely, alternative events like this creeping mold, which requires cleaning before it spreads too far. I'm sure more events are going to come down the pipe as time goes on, but at this stage in development, I'm more than happy to wait on those additional challenges. What you're seeing here is an early look, and in just the short time I've had my hands on this game, the single developer behind this project has dropped a number of large updates. As an example, one of the newer additions allows your colonists a training period, complete with the ability to schedule a specific time for training every day if you like. When you have a very limited number of colonists, their individual skill improvements can save you a ton of time. Even towards the very beginning of the game, it's actually common to develop a very long list in the construction queue, because your colonists begin relatively unskilled, and as they improve in their specialties, they'll spend a lot less time doing their assigned jobs, and they'll eventually be able to get more done in less time. When I first started the game, I felt like the camera controls were a bit restrictive. But over time, it actually makes more sense, as a top-down view offers you the most advantage as things grow. The place you find yourself in as the game begins only really gives you enough space and resources to get by, and you'll need to mine your way outward. In the process, you'll discover materials you don't yet understand, but everything becomes useful eventually. Ruins and dilapidated structures you discover are easily deconstructed and recycled. Nothing really goes to waste. The surface of this world is a dangerous place, but becomes your eventual goal as your resources available underground dwindle. The development of this title is extremely active, to the tune of multiple huge patches in each of the last few months. It's also being guided in part by the community of players within the Discord server for the game. I was able to quite easily chat with the developer myself to answer a few questions that I had before this video, which is a great experience for anyone who wants to be a real part of the early access process. For those of you looking to give this game a shot, prepare for a little bit of a slower gameplay than you're used to. Much of the early game is akin to the speed of the build-up when you only have around 3 colonists in a game like RimWorld, but the colonists you have here also have far less variety to their skill set. Exploration of the underground can help you locate new colonists in my experience, but it won't really be until much later in the game when you can start building up your ranks through cloning. With each person only really able to equip a total of 3 skills, each individual pawn in your colony is more critical than you typically see in similar genre games. Balancing their individual jobs to ensure they all stay busy is pretty important as well. Research is easy enough to build up, but that can be difficult at first to determine what research is actually the most valuable. Deep drilling, as an example, can be easily overlooked until you reach a point where it becomes almost impossible to proceed without it. For myself, at the point where I was approaching the surface, the game speed started to crawl a little bit as resources were becoming scarcer and further away, and the recipes became more and more expensive. As you approach the end of the tech tree, your power requirements are increased substantially as well, as you require data servers to hold on to your research. I would hope and expect that as development winds down and additional events are added, the game will present a lot more of a challenge. As it stands, there really isn't much adversity in the game. Colonists do need to eat, but the growth rate of even just a couple of plots is more than enough, and the wild plants you can gather are pretty plentiful. Reaching the end of the research tree, reaching the surface, at least for me, happened at about the same time. It became a bit unclear exactly where to go from there, but scanning the surface reveals points of interest that can be explored to unlock new recipes, allowing you to complete missing recipe entries in the research panel. I wasn't really able to locate a endgame to strive for. The game continues on at this point at the moment as an exploration minigame, through sending out those expeditions further and further, accessing new resources and discoveries, and bringing them home if you wish to continue expansion of your original base. According to the developer, the proposed endgame concept will eventually conclude the game, but in the same vein as something like RimWorld or other titles, whether or not it's the end of the game for you will be up to you as a player. The world map on the surface was far more extensive than I would have imagined. It leaves a ton of room for additional late game content and concepts. While at this very moment it's not fully fleshed out, once it is, I feel like players will have a much more complete overall experience. This would be a tough point in time to make a snap judgment regarding the overall difficulty and goals of the game, as those are likely to be the final pieces that need to fall into place. In the meantime, you have a very chill building and exploration experience with unlimited potential for expansion, and an integrated system for mods as well. At $20, this might be a little harder to justify for some, compared with some of the competition out there. But there's been some pretty deep discounts in the past for some of my more frugal audience members. It might be a great game to add to your wish list for those of you who don't mind waiting to save yourself a couple of bucks. I always have a massive level of respect for solo developers who are able to pull off a project of this scale. This is years of development in the making, and even if the game isn't up your alley, the amount of sacrifice and follow-through needed to do this is fairly intense. Anyway, that concludes my look at Mercury Fallen for now. I'm going to loop back around to this one as things are even further developed. I appreciate your time with me here today. Thanks for watching.